I'm 88 years old, and most of the people who knew me best are gone now. When you live this long, you outlast your enemies, your friends, even the person you used to be. What stays with you are the quiet memories, the small decisions, the ones that didn't feel like mistakes at the time, and that's what I want to talk about. Not the big failures. I didn't go bankrupt. I didn't abandon my family. I didn't ruin my life in some dramatic way. If you looked at it from the outside, you'd probably say I did all right. That's the problem. When you're young, you think mistakes have to be loud. You think they arrive like sirens, but the worst ones are quiet. They feel responsible, sensible, even admirable. I was 24 when I got my first real job, an accounting firm downtown. Nothing glamorous, gray building, fluorescent lights. The kind of place where time moves in straight lines. I remember sitting at my little metal desk and thinking, this is the beginning. I didn't come from money. My father worked with his hands until his back gave out. My mother cleaned houses. So, when that first steady paycheck came in, I felt proud, useful. I told myself I'd never struggle the way they did. I met Ellen when I was 27. She laughed easily. That's what I remember most. We'd sit on the hood of my car after dinner and just talk about nothing. She liked that I was steady. I liked that she made me forget how serious I was. We married a year later. Small ceremony, church basement reception. I promised her a good life, and I meant it. That's where the mistake began. I thought being a good husband meant working as much as I could, saying yes to every extra project, staying late, taking on clients nobody else wanted. I told myself it was temporary, just until we had some savings. Just until we bought the house, just until the kids were older. There's always a just until. Our first son was born when I was 31. I remember holding him in the hospital room. He was red and wrinkled and screaming. I felt terrified, responsible in a way I had never felt before. I went back to work 3 days later. That sounds normal. It was normal. That's how it goes. But normal doesn't mean harmless. I missed his first steps because I was closing out a quarter. Ellen told me about it over the phone. She was excited. I was distracted, staring at a spreadsheet while she described how he wobbled across the living room. I said, "That's great, honey." And I meant it, but I wasn't there. Our daughter came along 2 years later. By then I had been promoted. More money, more hours, more pressure. I bought a bigger house in a neighborhood I could barely afford. I told myself I was building something solid. I missed her school play in 3rd grade. I remember the date because Ellen didn't speak to me the whole drive home that night. I had promised I'd leave early, but a client came in at the last minute, angry about a discrepancy. I stayed. "She looked for you in the audience," Ellen said quietly. I told myself there would be other plays. There were. I missed some of those too. The thing about choosing work over people is that it doesn't feel like choosing against them. It feels like choosing for them, for their comfort, their security, their future. That's how I justified it. By my mid-40s, I was a partner. Corner office. Name on the door. I had the kind of success my father would have admired. He came to see the office once, ran his hand over the polished desk and nodded. "You did good," he said. I carried that sentence with me for years, but at home something subtle was shifting. The kids stopped asking if I'd be at their games. They'd just say, "If you can make it." Ellen stopped waiting up for me. She'd leave a plate in the oven and go to bed. There were no screaming fights, no dramatic ultimatums, just a slow cooling. One night I came home past midnight. The house was silent. I stood in the hallway outside my son's room. He was 16 by then. I almost knocked, almost went in to ask how his day was, but it felt awkward, like I was visiting someone else's house, so I went to bed. You don't notice the distance while it's forming. You only see it when it's already there. Ellen and I started talking about practical things, bills, schedules, college funds. The easy laughter from the hood of the car days disappeared somewhere along the way. I told myself this was what long marriages looked like, comfortable, stable. I didn't ask if she was lonely. I didn't ask myself if I was. The turning point didn't come with fireworks. It came with a hospital room. I was 62 when Ellen had her stroke. It was a Tuesday morning. She had been making coffee. I was retired by then, finally home, finally available. I heard the mug shatter. By the time I reached the kitchen, she was on the floor. Her eyes were open but confused. I remember kneeling beside her, saying her name over and over, like that might hold her here. She survived, but she was never the same. The right side of her body weakened. Her speech slowed. The woman who used to laugh so easily struggled to form sentences. I became her caretaker. I learned how to lift her gently, how to feed her without rushing. For the first time in our marriage, I had nowhere else to be. We spent long afternoons in the living room, sunlight coming through the curtains, the television murmuring. Sometimes she would look at me with a sadness I couldn't quite read. One day, about a year after the stroke, she managed to say something that has never left me. "You're here now." That was all. Not angry, not accusing. Just a statement. You're here now. I wanted to tell her I had always been there, that everything I did was for us. But sitting beside her wheelchair, I knew that wasn't true in the way it mattered. Being physically present at 62 doesn't erase being absent at 32. She passed away 3 years later, quietly, early morning. I was holding her hand. I remember thinking how small her hand felt, how I had once been too busy to hold it as often as I should have. The house became unbearably quiet after that, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. The kids visit when they can. They're good people, responsible, kind. I'm proud of them. But there's a formality to our conversations, a politeness. We talk about their jobs, their children. They hug me before they leave. I sometimes wonder if they feel closer to their friends than they do to me. That's the part no one warns you about. You can provide everything and still miss the heart of it. I sit in my chair most evenings and look at old photographs. There's one of Ellen and me in our 30s, standing in front of that first little house. We look tired but hopeful. I want to step into that picture and shake that young man, not to tell him to quit his job, not to tell him to be reckless, just to tell him to go home earlier, to sit on the floor and play for 10 more minutes, to leave one email unanswered, to hold his wife's hand on a Tuesday for no reason. I used to believe there would be a time when things slowed down, when I could finally enjoy what I had built, and that time did come. But by then, the children were grown, the laughter had changed, the woman I'd loved had already given me most of her healthy years. I don't hate my life. I'm grateful for it. We never went hungry. The kids had opportunities I never did. Ellen and I shared more than 40 years together. Gratitude and regret can live in the same room. I've learned that. If you are young and listening to this, I won't tell you to chase happiness or abandon responsibility. Life isn't that simple. Just be careful about what you postpone. The bedtime story you skip tonight doesn't disappear. It becomes a pattern. The dinner you miss becomes a habit. The conversation you delay becomes silence. You won't notice it happening. That's what makes it dangerous. I thought love was proven through sacrifice, through long hours and tired eyes. I see now that sometimes love is proven by sitting still, by being interruptible. At 88, your world shrinks, friends die, your body slows, you have long stretches of day with nothing but your thoughts, and your thoughts will go back over and over to the moments you hurried through. I don't remember most of the deals I closed. I don't remember the numbers on those spreadsheets. I do remember the look on Ellen's face the night of that school play. I remember my son's hesitant voice when he stopped asking if I'd come to his games. Those are the things that stay. I'm not telling you this because I think you can build a perfect life. You can't. There will always be trade-offs. I'm telling you because I truly believed I had more time to make it up to them. That's the mistake. Time doesn't announce when it's running out. It just quietly rearranges what's possible. If this meant something to you, then maybe tonight you'll close the laptop a little earlier. Maybe you'll sit beside someone you love without checking the clock, not because an old man told you to, but because one day, if you're lucky enough to reach 88, you'll want your memories to feel warm in your hands. I sit here now in the same house, in the same chair, and the sun still comes through the curtains in the afternoon. It looks just like it did when Ellen was in her wheelchair beside me. Sometimes I still turn to say something to her, and then I remember. That's what 88 feels like. Not dramatic, just aware. Aware of what you had, aware of what you missed, and aware that there's no going back to sit on the hood of that old car and start again.